Okay, hi there DT GCSE students. I hope you are all keeping well. Just going to do another one of these videos for this week and then probably one next week and then set you some up over the summer holidays as well. Thank you very much for those people who are engaging in this work. It's great to see that people are working hard at home and are really dedicated to the subject, which is nice to see. It's a bit of a shame that some people are still not engaging. I think we've got at least maybe half a dozen people who have done very little since lockdown, and that is not really going to set you up particularly well when we come back in September. Okay, so I'm going to do the normal lesson, so different subject but same sort of format. So you're going to go through the content, then we're going to look at a couple of exam questions, and then we'll link that to a Google form and you can have a go and test yourself and then submit that at the end. If you have got a paper and pen handy for you, that would be really good. Paper and pen would be helpful for you to do the exam questions and take any notes. And obviously you can pause the video as you go along when we ask the questions. Okay, so in the materials section of the theory work, it asks us to look at a number of different materials. So we're all familiar with these materials and we've used them in the past before, whether it's in year 7 and year 8. But what we have to know is the technical aspects of these materials. So we have done some woods already in the classroom. I'm just going to focus this time on papers and boards, and then next lesson we're going to do metals and alloys. Okay, so papers and boards. So this is the ability for you to find out about different types of papers and different types of boards or cardboards. Okay, so we're going to do a little bit of a starter. So on the screen you'll see the usual pictures around the outside, and I just want to see whether you can link these pictures that you have here to the images. Some of them that you will know, some of them you will find quite difficult, but see whether you can work that out. If you want to pause the video here, you can, and then see whether you can put them in the right position. Okay, so answers are as follows. So tracing paper is obviously the see-through paper that you use to trace through, fairly straightforward. Grid paper, again used in maths, fairly straightforward. Now duplex board tends to be really high quality board used for business cards and graphics. Foam cord board tends to be board that has board on the outside but foam in the middle, used for model making. Cartridge paper is quite heavy duty paper used in art for things like watercolours. Layout paper is paper that's used by architects, so paper but quite thin. Foil lined board is takeaway trays or inserts on the top of takeaway trays. Corrugated cards, things like Amazon boxes, and then solid white board, which is really high quality board but that is white, tends to be used for things like perfume boxes and chocolate boxes and confectionery. Okay, so we're going to learn about the following things. So understand examples of different papers and boards, understand where they originate from, so where does paper come from, and then to have a look at the everyday uses of that material. So how is paper made and what is the primary source of this material? So most people will know that paper is a thin material produced by pressing together fibres of cellulose pulp derived from wood and rags and grasses and drying them into flexible sheets. So as we all know, paper tends to come from trees. We tend to pulp the trees down, okay, and then we tend to put them into a sort of a pulp or a mush and then add some water and then flatten them down, and that creates paper. You can also create paper with old rags and cloth, and you can also create paper with grasses, which some of you might not know. So it's a very versatile material. You can use it for writing and printing and packaging and cleaning and decorating a number of industrial and commercial and construction processes. Papers are essential in legal or non-legal documentation. So if somebody writes a will, you need to have a paper. Somebody writes a story, you need to have paper. So paper is made in 2 steps. So cellulose fibres are extracted from a variety of sources and converted to pulp. So pulp is like a watery mush of the wood. Pulp is combined with water and placed on a paper making machine where it is flattened, dried and cut into sheets and rolls. Okay, if you go onto my YouTube channel, you'll see under the playlist there is something about papers and boards. Okay, so different types of papers. So common papers. So bleed proof paper. So coated white paper that does not bleed. Can only be used on one side, can take felt tips and markers without bleeding. Deeper colours can be layered up to approximately 70 GSM. We'll explain what that GSM means as we go through. So used for markers, colour renderings and final designs. Cartridge paper, slightly thicker, textured. It can be a variety of different colours, more expensive and thicker than light, and light texture ideal for sketching. Approximately 120 to 150 GSM. So again, we'll look at this, but you can see that this number here is higher than this number. So you would think that this is heavier and thicker, which it is. So used for watercolouring, artist sketching, charcoal drawing, something you'd use in art. Grid paper, so paper with coloured gridded lines, various sizes, used for maths, finances, drawing plans, various grids, different colours, again 80 GSM, used for plans in drawings and finance and maths and calculation, so your maths book will have a gridded sheet. So layout paper, something which you're probably not that familiar with. It is slightly see-through, but not as see-through as tracing paper. Very thin, very smooth, white finish. Excellent for sketching and using as an overlay. Some inks on it will smudge because it's quite thin. You can see that the GSM is lower, so it's thinner. So copying, sketching, tracing, revamping ideas. So if you were an architect, you would tend to use layout paper and roll it up to draw some blueprints or a layout. And then we have tracing paper. So translucent off-white paper, which means you can see through it. Takes pencils and most colours very nicely. Can smudge with things like felt tips. Tracing paper can be from 40 to 120 GSM. Good for things like overlays. Works really well with light boxes, windows for architectural models, etc. Okay, great for tracing drawings. So what you need to remember is paper is measured in weight in grams per square metre. Okay, so paper is measured in weight, grams per square metre, or GSM. So the higher the number, the heavier and thicker the paper. The lower the number, the lighter and thinner the paper. And then you'll know that paper comes in all different sizes, from A0 to A10. Okay, so we're now going to talk about common boards. So we've gone from paper to boards. So corrugated card, bonded paper with 3 layers, brown mostly, strong and rigid. We have these little lines that run through the middle here, which we call flutes. Okay, can act as a bit of a waterproof barrier. Can only be folded one way. If you try to fold an Amazon box against the flutes, it doesn't work. And you can see that the GSM is much higher. So we're talking here, instead of hundreds, we're talking thousands now, because the product is getting thicker and thicker. So packaging boxes, protection, storage, transportation. Duplex board, so 2 layers bonded together, usually high quality white with print on it. So light and stiff, ideal for printing on, can be coated for gloss and matte finishes. So again, you can see the GSM. Food containers, food packaging, perfume boxes. Foil lined board, so aluminium coated white card. So foil keeps the heat in and the oil coated card keeps the contents in. 200 to 400 GSM. So this is things like takeaway trays, okay, and food containers. Foam core board, so 3-layered core foam, so foam centre and card on the outside. Has a polystyrene centre, available in a few different colours. It's quite hard to cut with a craft knife. You can crack it and snap it, and that comes in 3 to 10 millimeters. Notice that the GSM has gone. We're now up to 3 and 10 millimeters. So framing, architectural models, display work, artwork, photo mounting. We have inkjet board, so brilliant and smooth and solid. So ink dries on the surface, can be used for inkjet printers, high quality and rigid, high quality images and photographs. And then we have solid whiteboard, smooth on both sides, brilliant white, high quality white, easy to fold, easy to cut, easy to crease. Things like birthday cards, packaging, embossing and perfume bottles and advertising. So one thing you'll need to note is that board is measured in weight in grams per square meter, okay, or sometimes it's measured in microns. So if you look here, you've got a number here that I'm measured in grams per square meter. So again, the higher the number, the thicker the product. But you'll also see that some things are measured in millimeters, and that would be what we call microns. So 1,000 microns is equivalent to 1 millimeter. Okay, so this here would be 3,000 to 10,000 microns. Sorry, 300 to 1,000 microns. Okay, so just to remind you, paper tends to be measured in grams per square meter, board tends to be measured in grams per square meter or microns. Okay, the lower the number, the thinner the board or thinner the paper. Okay, paper sizes. Well, I'm sure you're all familiar with different types of paper sizes. In school we tend to work on A4. If you double up A4 you get A3. If you double up A3 you get A2. If you fold A4 in half you get A5. Fold A5 in half you get A6, and so on. And all of these will have certain dimensions. So as a design teacher I know that A4 is 210 by 297. I know A3 is 297 by 420. Okay. Right, so just to remind you what we've done, source of paper tends to come from trees or rags or grasses, mashed up into a pulp, the inside of a tree, added to water, sort of mushed down, laid flat, pressed the water out, and then dried on a rack to create a sheet. Alright, we've got a number of different papers, so bleed-proof paper, cartridge paper, grid paper, layout paper, tracing paper. Paper is measured in grams per square meter. Okay, size is A0 from A10. The lower the number, the thinner the paper. Okay, we've got boards, corrugated card, duplex board, foil lined board, foam core board, inkjet board and solid whiteboard. Okay, and again, board is measured in weight in grams per square meter, but also can be measured in microns. And 100 microns equals 1 millimeter thickness. So if a board is 5 millimeters thick, it's 500 microns thick. Okay, so exam questions. So what you can do at this point is to go back through what we've just discussed, take the video back. We're going to do 3 types of questions from A, B and C section in the exam paper. This is question A, so core technical principles. So this tends to be at the beginning of the exam paper and it is multiple choice. So which of these is a board rather than a paper? So out of that list there, which of those is a board rather than a paper? And then second one, which of these papers would be ideal for mathematics? Again, if you want to pause the video and answer that, you can. Okay, so you know from the revision we've just done that duplex is the only board there. This is tracing paper, this is layout paper, this is cartridge paper. The duplex is the only board there. And which one of these is suitable for mathematics? Well, you know that gridded paper is used in your maths book. Okay, question 2. So this tends to be a slightly longer answer, 5 marks. So can you explain the properties of corrugated card and why it is ideal for boxing and packaging? Okay, so this is a piece of corrugated card that you see on your Amazon boxes. All right, so why is that ideal for corrugated? Why is that corrugated card ideal for boxing and packaging? Again, if you want to pause the video and you're looking for sort of 4 or 5 bullet points because it's worth 5 marks in total. Okay, if you've come out the pause, this is what we've got. Okay, so can you explain properties of corrugated card? So strong and rigid. Okay, the flutes run through the middle that make it nice and strong. It can act as a waterproof barrier because you've got 2 layers. It only folds in one direction, which is along the flutes. It can be made from recycled card and you can print on it. So you probably got, I would imagine, this one. I would imagine that you probably got the flutes and that it was waterproof. But we know that anything can be made from recycled card or paper, and of course you can print it on it because Amazon prints on their boxes. Okay, next one says explain the process of paper extraction from the ground. Okay, a longer 8-mark question. So again, you can pause this, and this is basically asking you, where does paper come from? From the ground, okay, where a tree is planted. Explain that process. Again, you can pause the video. Okay, so after they've paused it, so paper is made in 2 steps. Cellulose fibres are extracted from a variety of sources such as trees and then converted into pulp. Pulp is then combined with the water and placed on a paper making machine where it's flattened, dried and cut into sheets and rolls. Okay, so just imagine you take a tree, cut the tree down, you take the wood on the inside, you mix it with water into a bit of a mush, you lay it out on a tray, you squeeze it and squeeze all the water out, and then all those fibres combine together to make paper. Okay, if you look very closely at things like cartridge paper, you'll see very, very fine fibres in it. If you look at something like an A4 piece of paper, you won't see anything, and that's because it's been refined and flattened and pressed and pulped together really fine, and also things like bleach and stuff are added to make the paper really, really white. Otherwise the paper would tend to be slightly yellow because of the yellowness of the tree and the wood. Okay, and that sort of brings the lesson to an end. Alright, what I suggest you do now is we go back through the objectives here, so you can see that we've looked at different types of papers and boards, we understand where they come from, and then we've looked at everyday uses. Okay, what I suggest you do is you go back through the video here. Again, familiarise yourself with different papers and their uses. Familiarise yourself with the fact that paper is measured in GSM, grams per square metre. Okay, the lower the number, the thinner the paper, the lighter the paper, the higher the number, the heavier the paper, the thicker the paper. And then, as we explained, sometimes boards are not measured in GSM, they are measured in microns. Okay, and it's 100 microns per 1mm thickness. Okay, so if it's 100 microns, quite thin card. If it's 500 microns, then it's 5mm thick, quite thick card. Okay, if you look in your homework, you'll see that there is a link through to a Google Docs, a Google form. Have a go at that and then submit it, and then I'll send you some feedback with the marking. Thanks for listening. Thanks again for engaging in this activity, and we'll send you one next week as well.